Hello everyone, and welcome to my video on the second wave of Gothic set card previews. Let's have a look at the first card and discuss it. The first card is Search Party. So this one here. I'll read out its details first. 3 mana, 2 Earth Threshold, 3 power. Ordinary mortals leave none behind. It's an ordinary mortal. The art is by Matthias Frisk. It's not bad, it's nice looking. Has +1 power for each search party in your cemetery. So first of all, we'll talk about this card in regards to limited play, so that is draft and sealed. In limited play, if you're playing with just Gothic cards, like Gothic packs, either draft or sealed, from what we've seen so far, this card looks like it will probably be good, but you might want to be wary about that because there do seem to be a significant number of cards in this set that remove things from the cemetery. So on the face of it, a 3 mana, 3 power in limited play is always good. And this is obviously that, but with a little bit of an added bonus to synergizing with, well, other minion cards of the 3 mana and 3 power because they're the same card, Search Party. So in that sense it'll be good, but what you need to worry about is the other cards that's in the Gothic set that we've even just only seen so far, and there's more that are going to be coming out, that remove things from your cemetery that could diminish how good this card is. Another thing to worry about when playing limited with draft, specifically with just Gothic packs, is that this card is likely to be popular, so you might not get as many as you'd like to synergize with each other because others are going to be drafting it. However, who knows what's going to happen in that draft pod. Some could have gotten cards that make it so they don't want to draft into Earth. We don't know how strong Earth will be in general yet. And in that sense, so it could be good and you could go for it and you could end up being the one who gets a lot of them, and they could be quite powerful. The other thing is, because there's no cap in limited on the rarity type that you can have in a spellbook or atlas, you can have more than 4 of these if you happen to get them, which means you could have like 5 or 6, and you could buff up one of them by 5 to have an 8 power for 3 mana. However, that's very unlikely. Even though you can have more than 4, getting more than 4 is another matter, but it can happen. I've seen people who've drafted decks for Arthurian Legends draft, for example, who have had 5 or 6 bears. It happens. And this could be quite good if you happen to be lucky enough to draft that many of these in your draft pod. In limited play, where you do not just play with Gothic packs, where you play with a mixture of the others, whatever that mixture may be, this minion will still be good because it's a 3 mana, 3 power in limited sorcery play. However, it will not be as good, I don't think, as it would be in a limited event where you just have Gothic packs, because you won't be as likely to see as many, specifically this card, Search Party, to get that game text box buff from previous search parties being in your cemetery. In constructed, I don't see this card as necessarily being the most powerful yet, based on what we understand about constructed at the moment. But we don't know how that could change when we get the rest of the Gothic cards that come out. There may be something going on there that will allow this to be in a certain constructed deck recipe that could be really strong. Already it's not the worst to have, given that you want it to die and go into the cemetery, to have, like, if you're synergizing with Scourge zombies, and then because you're running Scourge zombies, you don't want to run Pillar of Xeros because you do not want to lose these minions, your Scourge zombies, already from your cemetery, which means you're not going to be losing these from your cemetery. You'd almost definitely be using Wormaloat's Hump in the atlas of that kind of deck, and because you're doing that, you're protecting your cemetery with these cards from other cards out there that are trying to remove things, or specifically minions, from your cemetery. In constructed play, I don't see it as being particularly strong at the moment, but we'll see how things change once we have more information about what else is out there in the Gothic set. Let's move to the next card, or the next two. Of these two, we're going to start with this one, Second Wind. 1 mana, 1 air threshold. Ordinary magic of rest twice rejected. It's by Emil Idzikowski. Emil Idzikowski. That name is really difficult for me to pronounce. An allied minion takes a step. You may cast this spell from your cemetery, banishing it afterward. This spell, others have already pointed this out that I've seen when reviewing this spell, and the first thing that they will most likely say is going to be the first thing that I'd most likely say, which is, why would you take this when you can take Blink? And we're going to discuss that in a moment. Starting with thinking about this card in Limited. If you're running Limited, draft or sealed, with just Gothic cards, just Gothic packs, you can't get Blink. Already it's useful, despite the fact that Blink could be considered a better spell, because you can't get Blink, because it's in Alpha and Beta. You also can't get Tactical Maneuver from Arthurian Legends. So already in a limited format where you're only using Gothic packs, this is already good. In general, in Limited, magic spells that provide maneuverability are always good. A lot of the times you do not have the luxury of having access confidently to a finisher, a magic spell damage finisher, to finish an enemy avatar who is on death's door, and a maneuver spell that helps you move an untapped minion of yours so that you can perform the death blow on a enemy avatar is terrific in Limited. If you're playing Limited format, whether draft or sealed, with a mixture of different sets, so not just the Gothic set, this could still be good for those exact same reasons. You're not necessarily going to get as many Blinks as you want anyway. This could be good for the exact same reasons in Limited, because a maneuverability spell is always just so good in Limited. Furthermore, Blink lets you move nearby. So if you take steps, with this spell being cast twice for 2 mana, if you want to go diagonally with a minion from where it is located, for 2 mana you move it only as far as you move a Blink. However, if you're moving in a straight direction with this spell and you cast it twice, and thus you're using 2 mana to do that move, you can move that minion forward or to the side further than Blink. You can move it 2 steps instead of just 1, and that's good. Already that's a bonus. You can use it once to move something 1 step, do something with it. The minion that you've moved in this way, like whether tap to attack a site or tap to attack an enemy unit, I don't know, like things like that, use if that minion is a spellcaster, cast spells with it, or something else that it might have as well, like a tap ability, and then you can cast this from your cemetery to move it again. So the fact that you get to sort of divide the movement into 2 portions on the storyline of the game is also something that could be useful. In Constructed, some of these lessons do apply, but in Constructed, one of the reasons that this could be good is that you can only have 4 blinks. Once you've maxed out on the maximum number of blinks that you can have, you can't have any more, and so this could be useful to have on top of the 4 blinks you already have. So I'm thinking of, especially a Avatar of Air deck. You may have already maxed out on your 4 blinks. Taking this could be quite useful. One thing to keep in mind, which also makes this card not as good as Blink, which I would say is the case, is that you can only move minions. You can't move units. You can't move your avatar with this card, and that could be a problem as well. In limited, if you've already got 4 blinks and you want to take this, it could be quite useful. It also depends perhaps on some other sort of recipes out there that people might cook up that will make what I mentioned before about being able to move with 1 step, do something and move another step by recasting this from your cemetery. There's something else as well to mention. If you have there could be something that will come out in Gothic that makes it so if you cast spells more frequently, you get some sort of buff. Like something could be out there that makes it so that for all the spells you cast, you get a buff or something like that. But we don't know about that existing yet. So at the moment, that doesn't matter. But if there were something like that, how many times you'd be casting this, both from your hand and from your cemetery, could be really good. Yes. That's all I think I want to say about that one. We'll move on to the next one. Return to Nature. 2 mana, 1 water threshold. Ordinary magic, preserves the natural order. Heidi Tayufa is the artist. The text box is return up to 3 cards from a cemetery to the bottom of their decks. Draw a spell. Starting off with limited, will this card be good in limited? It will be okay for one key reason. This is really easy to explain. It's a cantrip. You get to draw a spell. The fact that it's a cantrip and you get to draw a spell already makes it, for 2 mana, already makes it okay in limited. If you're running limited that is just the Gothic set, based on what we've seen of the Gothic set so far, I'm not sure how good this will be in limited. It could be still okay because in limited, draft and sealed, your minimum number of cards that you have in your spellbook is 24. And so far as I know, they're not going to change that in limited play when this comes out, when the Gothic set comes out. In limited play, you really do, realistically, and in my experience more so than in constructed, you run out of spell cards in your spellbook. And if you can take some powerful cards you've already used so far that are still in your cemetery and put them on the bottom of your deck, it is in limited, that is quite good. It does happen. You do run out of spell cards in that smaller 24 card spellbook. There's another thing as well. If you're playing limited, where with not only Gothic packs, but also with Arthurian Legends packs, and you were running Earth and you were trying to run the pigs. So the Squeakers, the Pigs, and the Sounder, and the Grand Old Warboar, if you can get lucky enough to get all 3, especially the Grand Old Warboar, sometimes you are forced, because of their game text box ability, Death Ride ability, you're forced to put things onto the bottom of your spellbook that you may not have necessarily really wanted to put on the bottom of your spellbook, but you had no choice. And doing this will sort of move those things further up, and that could be useful as well. They might also be, say, the Pigs of the Sound or the Grand Old Warboar, and you can put them back into your spellbook, predict where they're going to be, and that will let you use the abilities of those pigs if you're playing a sealed or draft event with both Arthurian Legends and Gothic. From what I can read, there's nothing about putting the cards on the bottom of your deck, of their deck, so it's your opponent's deck as well if you wanted to do this, in a random order. So that means that you get to choose the order that you put them on the bottom in regards to using this spell in limited to do that with the pig synergy. In constructed, will this spell be good? My answer to that is yes, I believe it will. Water already has access to some interesting cards that allow you to draw spells from the bottom of your spell book. Deep Sea Mermaids from Alpha Beta, and then Kelp Cavern from Arthurian Legends. Kelp Cavern doesn't let you draw them from your spell book, it does let you put one back on the top. Furthermore, you've got access to the Avatar Seer. Not that will let you draw from the bottom, but there's you can synergize with his ability with Deep Sea Mermaids like I do in my Spirit Seer deck that runs water. This card in certain niche decks, particularly because it's in water and because of other cards that are available to you in water, I believe this card will be good. I'd certainly see myself putting it into that Spirit Seer deck of mine that runs air and water. Most definitely. Yeah, so that's enough about these two. We'll move on to the fourth card. The fourth card is this one here, which is Carrionet. 3 mana, 2 air threshold. Exceptional Magic of Stitch and String by Scott Kirshner. Interesting art. We'll read the text box ability. Summon an undead minion from a cemetery to a nearby location. Will this card be good first in limited? In draft and sealed, it depends on how lucky you get to get other undead, to get undead minions, as well as this card. If you do, then yes, it will. If you don't, then not so much. In general, if you're playing Gothic cards only, it really all depends on what else is coming out in Gothic, as I've said with the last few entries. Depending on what undead minions are available, it could be good, really, really good in Gothic, and in limited, in draft and sealed, just using Gothic packs. If you're playing limited format with packs from the other sets, from Alpha Beta or Arthurian Legends, do I think that this card will be good? Not especially. Even Dapper Vampires are exceptional. Infernal Legion and Nightmare Elite. Other undead are not that impressive, and they not without those other ones in such a limited deck that I'm envisioning. And you just like a lot of them are not powerful enough to be really worth 3 mana. Like Spectral Stalker is ordinary. Scourge Zombies could be okay, but whatever. You already sort of wanted in the synergy in the cemetery to synergize with mortals, bringing the Scourge Zombies back anyway. And then there's another one which is Spire Lich. It's just not that great in general, and it won't be great because of this. In Gothic, depending on what else is out there, it could be quite good. Only one way to find out. In Constructed, will this card be good? In Constructed, in certain deck formulas, yes it will. If you are synergizing with Undead, and that's even before we know what else is coming out with Gothic again still, if you're synergizing with Undead, it's going to be good. You could be running, I'm thinking of imagining certain air fire decks that run Dapper Vampires, Infernal Legion, Nightmare. You can bring that. A Nightmare is 7 mana, an Infernal Legion is 6 mana, and a Dapper Vampire is 5 mana. Being able to bring those back from your cemetery is terrific. It's just it would be great to do that for 3 mana. Like you can have 3 Dapper Vampires in your deck for on turn 5 with 5 mana. You could play a Dapper Vampire. If the enemy removes it, or you even sacrifice it yourself in your next turn after that turn where you had 5 mana, for whatever reason that you want to do that, to swing it into another 4 power, get your 4 heal, it goes into the cemetery. If you play a site that turn and have access to 6 mana now, you can play this to bring the Dapper Vampire back, and then you can play Grapple Shot, and you can use her again on a different target or something like that to get another heal for that 6 mana. It's just, that's terrific. You could bring back... Yes, I believe that this card will be strong in certain deck recipes that synergize with Undead in Constructed. Let's move on to the next ones. These two here, starting with Carrion Beetles. 1 mana, 1 Earth Threshold, 1 power. Ordinary Beast, Feast on the Dead, Burrowing, Genesis, Banish... Oh, hang on, I'll read the artist first. Elvira Pavlikovska. Another hard name for me to remember how to say, but I've got them written down. I'll reread the game text box. Burrowing, Genesis, banish 3 cards from 1 cemetery. Will this card be good? Starting with Limited. In Limited, I think it'll be okay. From what we've seen so far of Gothic cards that are coming out in the Gothic set, there's certain things that synergize well with cemeteries. Being able to banish 3 cards from your opponent's cemeteries if you're playing Gothic with just Gothic packs in the Limited format. This card I think will be good. There's no doubts about it. It's not that impressive. 1 mana, 1 powers are not that great in Limited, with some exceptions. Redbreast Robin from Arthurian Legends is quite good, but that has Airborne, and then its damage that it does just makes it really good in Limited, and they're okay in Limited. This one will be good, I think, in Limited in a small amount in your spellbook, because that banish the 3 cards from 1 cemetery will be good at removing things from their cemetery that you're worried about because you're playing Limited format with just Gothic cards. Burrowing is also good. You can use it, you can sort of creep around on others. You can go onto their site and swing up for 1 by getting to a safe site. You can use it to, so I think it'll be okay. In Limited, where you have other cards from, you have other sets mixed with Gothic packs, the Gothic set, I don't think it will be as good. There won't be as much need for the synergy. There won't be as much need to banish things from your opponent's cemetery, for example. Arthurian Legends has a little bit of that, like it's got, in that set there's the Walpatinger, which gets buffed from beasts that are in your cemetery, and the Grand Old War Boar, if you're running the 3 pigs, and you have to get lucky enough to get a Grand Old War Boar, gets a bonus from... gets charge if there are squeakers in the cemetery, for example, and this could remove them. But the more and more you mix the other sets with the Gothic set, from what we've seen so far of the Gothic set, this looks like it would not be as good in that kind of Limited circumstance, when playing Limited format with those other sets. In Constructed, do I think that this card will be good? It depends on what else is going to happen with Gothic. This could be really good against Archimagos, but the problem is I don't see it as being that great. It'll be good against Death Speakers as well, but I don't see it as being that great against other things. So at the moment, I would say no. It's a 1 power for 1 mana that's not particularly good in Constructed. It could be good in Constructed to just have 1. If you're running some kind of Earth deck that's running Assortment of Animals, and you want a 1 mana beast minion to have access to for how you want to utilise the mana allowance of casting Assortment of Animals to retrieve beasts from your spellbook, it could be okay. It would definitely be good in Constructed on a sideboard to put into your deck purely for when you're versing Archimagos, but in your main deck, separate from your sideboard, other than 1 perhaps for certain types of decks that are running Assortment of Animals and Beast synergy, and in Earth, let's face it, that's not unlikely with Root Spiders and Unicorns. They're terrific beasts. In general, I think 1 could be okay under those specific circumstances, and that otherwise it would be a great card on the sideboard, but beyond that, not so good in Constructed. Let's move on to this next one. Plague Pits. An elite site to burn out the blight. 1 fire threshold. By Scott Kirshner. His name's easy to say. Art looks terrific again. This one I particularly like. It's got something to it. The way it's done sort of washes, looks good. Let's read the game text box ability. Genesis. If there are 3 or more dead minions, banish all cemeteries. Will this site be good in constructed? In limited, pardon me. Again, it's the exact same answer as with carrying beetles. In limited formats where you have only Gothic cards, from what I can see, it looks like it probably will be. It looks like it could be very useful at shutting down synergies that people have with their cemeteries with Gothic cards. Not to mention, then if you're mixing it with the Gothic set, playing limited with the Gothic set and other sets, if that other set is Arthurian Legends, then I still think it could be okay. There are certain cemetery synergies in Arthurian Legends that are powerful, and then even in Alpha Beta there are Scourge zombies. There's Death Speakers that you can get in those Alpha Beta packs as well, but the more and more you get towards Alpha and Beta, away from this Gothic set, the more and more this looks like it wouldn't be that good. But I still think it would be good, definitely in limited formats where you are running only Gothic packs from what we've seen so far. In constructed with Plague Pits, it's once again, it's a little bit like carrying beetles. Within reason, because it does need 3 dead minions. If you're running a minion heavy deck against an Archimago, this could be quite good to have on your sideboard for versing an Archimago. You would definitely not want this with, it depends on which avatar and depends on which recipe. With a Flamecaller, you don't want it. It would be terrible. I don't think you really want it with a Death Speaker of your own. You don't want it if you're running an Archimago yourself. In other decks, though, it could be good. Yes, it could be good for helping deal with Death Speakers or Archimagos. And the constructed meta will change, of course, with all of the Gothic cards that are out there, which seem to already have a lot of cemetery synergy from what we've seen. I don't think it will be that good, but it could be okay in certain niche decks in constructed, would be my answer at the moment. Let's move on to the next one. Stitched Abomination. 7 mana, 2 air, power is star. An elite undead, straining at the seams. It's by Doug Kovacs. I like this art. I do. Let's read its text box. Genesis. Banish up to 3 minions from 1 cemetery to stitch together. This... I'm just going to read that more carefully for a moment because I'm curious about whether or not they mean if you do choose your opponent's cemetery, do all 3 minions have to be from that one specific cemetery? Genesis, banish up to 3 minions from 1 cemetery to stitch together. It looks to be that way. It looks to be like you have to choose 1 cemetery of your own or your opponent's, and you can only do it from that 1 cemetery. This abomination has their combined power, but each part may be damaged and destroyed separately. Righto, so already this card reminds me of, for anyone else who's played Blizzard Entertainment's Hearthstone, they brought out in a set eventually in Hearthstone the Death Knight hero cards that you could change your innate hero character to. And when you did that with the Hunter, with Deathstalker Rexar, he could create something called Zombies, which were an amalgamation of beast cards that you get a choice from out of 3, where you combine them together and you get their combined stats and their combined abilities. This reminds me of that Zombies from Hearthstone. However, you don't get the abilities of the minions you stitch together. Clearly, you just get their combined power, and then those power combinations can be killed separately. Do I think that this card will be good? Starting off with limited again, That's a good question. I need a moment to think. I think that it would if you have the right synergies. If you were just playing limited format with just Gothic cards, it does seem like there's a lot of ability out there to remove things from your opponent's cemetery, and this is one of them, because someone could play this in that limited game and remove minions from your own cemetery, as well as getting this minion from them all stitched together. Let's say there's 3 powers in the cemetery. 9 power for 7 mana. That's not bad. But that they could still chip away at to weaken and so on and so forth. Powerful minions in general in Limited are also quite useful to take. You can often just win or lose a game if you happen to be the person who has drafted that powerful minion. So I would say in Limited, if it's just Gothic sets, then it would be good. I think if you're playing limited format with not only Gothic packs, but also packs from other sets like Arthurian Legends and Alpha and Beta, in either case, I think this will be very good. Most definitely. This is an example of an elite undead minion that will synergize quite well with Carrionet that we looked at before. So if you get Carrionet and this in draft or sealed, that's already, you're already off to a good start. Yes, in constructed, do I believe that this card will be good? In that undead synergy deck that I mentioned earlier with Carrionet, I believe yes, it would be good in that specific deck that you have cooked up that utilises undead synergy. Most definitely. That would be my answer to that. Like, so if you're already running some sort of fire and air deck, and you're using Infernal Legion and Nightmare and Dapper Vampire, this will be good in that deck, I believe. Like, Burning Legion and Nightmare have 6 power. You can already combine them together. And then there's another thing as well. If you're running a deck with Great Old One, 16 power is huge to get back and put back on to this thing. For 7 mana already, with that Great Old One alone, you've got an extremely powerful minion for 7 mana and 2 air threshold. So if you're running some kind of deck that's utilising water as well, that's using the Great Old One, this will be quite good. Yes, that's what I think. That's all of the cards from the second wave of Gothic preview. So that's it. Thanks for watching the video.